All right, this next bit is how to hold your weapon. Now, historically, there's two basic ways of holding. In a hammer grip, as it implies, it's like you're holding a hammer, or in a saber grip. So we've got a thumb along the back edge. Most SCA guys, they're not going to have this. Most SCA heavies fighters are not going to have much of a saber grip, certainly not on a one-handed sword. Saber grip is very good for maneuvering when you have a real sword and when touches count, because a real sword, that'll cut right there, just these small little motions. However, with an SCA heavy sword, you're going to want to make them feel it. And so you're going to end up with more of a hammer grip, but it's not where every single finger is tight. If every single finger is tight, that means all the muscles down through your wrist and your forearm are tight. And once again, the transfer of power from you moving your hips is going to get into a traffic jam right here because everything is tight and it's not being able to move easily through there. All right? So, you're going to want to have specifically, we're doing it, and once again, if you end up fighting for 10 years and find, you know what, this grip or this other grip suits me better, then by all means do that. But a good place to start is where you have your thumb and your forefinger, they're the tight ones. They're the ones that are holding on to the sword. These three fingers are also holding on, but they're helping to guide it. So they can move one way or another. And in fact, if I just have them nice and loose, but if I make a fist, obviously that's not very hard, but you know what? When it's put at the end of a strike, that adds a little bit of sting to it. And it might be the difference between someone shrugging off a hit and them taking it. Right? Just a little bit of extra snap there. Now, so I'm going to have my hand nice and loose with these fingers, but nice and tight with these. I'm actually grabbing onto my index finger with my thumb right there, because that is the least amount of tension necessary to keep the sword in my hand. Otherwise, it's going to go flying. All right? So, just like in a previous video, because the strike is coming from my right to my left hip is going to come back as this comes forward. Now, I've talked about hiding your movements before, not telegraphing. You know, you see a lot in movies, particularly John Wayne movies, and I am a John Wayne fan, but the fight sequences are all just these giant haymakers, because apparently the Duke didn't like to do choreography. So, wanted to make sure that these big things are swings he could see from a mile away, he could duck, he could block, he could, whatever the case is. But you don't want to do that in a real fight. Because in a real fight, and by the way, a real fight I define as anything where you're trying to hit someone and they are trying to hit you, and neither of you want that to happen. All right, so whether it be an SCA duel out on the metal, HEMA fight, whatever the case is, where you're trying to hit someone and they're trying to prevent you from doing it, you want to hide your motions. So, I'll have a lot of people have their sword just kind of resting on their shoulder. All right? Now, pretend if I have a shield or something like that here, that's another thing. But in this swing, my left hip comes back, and then this comes straight out. Once again, I'm not pushing with my arm. The torso motion and the fact that my arm is nice and relaxed and is just kind of managing the momentum is what's causing it to come out. Right? Same thing if you're talking about boxing. All right? Left hip, right hip. Left hip, right hip, and so on and so forth. Now, when it's coming out, not only because it's coming straight out, is it hard for the human eye to pick up. If it was coming out, it'd be very easy for the human eye to pick up. We are good at dealing with motion on our periphery. We're not so good at things at one level getting bigger. That's why there's brake lights on cars, because if there were no brake lights on cars, it would take our eyes a few moments to figure out that the car had stopped and was getting bigger in our vision. So they put brake lights on there, so we put on the brakes, we don't rear end people. So this, however, is working on that same principle, but we're trying to hide that motion. So it comes straight out. And then, once again, these two are tight, these two are loose, these three are loose. Yes, I can count the number of fingers I have. So this comes out, and then depending on the position of my wrist and where I want to strike, I can either strike straight up and down, I can strike to the side, I can strike up, I can strike, I have to move my head a little bit because it's a longer sword, but off to the other side, and so on and so forth. Now, if I just make a fist right there, not bad, especially if I have a little bit of background there. So, I'm going to show you a couple slow ones so you can see how the movement goes, and I'll do it with right and left foot forward. Left foot first, left hip comes back, and out we go. And then back in, left hip comes back, this comes out, and there's the hit, all right? Same thing if I have the right foot forward. Now that's just gonna mess with my distance. It's still the left hip comes back. And once again, I'm not pushing off. I'm not throwing my body weight at the person. I don't need to. This is plenty strong that someone, if they're playing by the rules anyway, should take it. And even if they're not playing by the rules, you just hit them again. Harder this time. So, one foot forward or the other foot forward, it doesn't matter. The left hip is still coming back as the sword comes this way. All right? Now, if I want to step, it's only because I'm worried about the distance or the relationship. If I want to move out to the side, maybe hit them a bit around one way or another. Or if they're threatening on here, I move and hit them over this way. So, but for the time being, we're just doing a flat snap, which is just right to the side of the head. It's a horizontal, boom, right there. But once again, all the motions are going to be the same. So, left hip comes back. This comes out because it's being thrown out by my body motion, not because I'm pushing my arm. Coming out. And I just let the momentum of the sword, being guided by my fingers and by my hand, I let it do the work. Like so. Other foot forward, same thing. Once again, keeping my other hand up because I'm getting used to maybe holding a shield, holding a buckler, holding an extra weapon, something like that. It's up here and it's doing something. Because there are also other techniques. If you have only a single sword, there are other techniques where you can put your hand and brace the weapon and actually use it, maybe throw it, give it a little bit extra momentum, but that's much further down the line. For the basics, flat snap, again, left hip comes out. Left hip comes out. Same thing if it's here. Left hip comes out. And obviously, if I'm left-handed, then the right hip comes out. And try to keep this as straight down the pipe as possible. Try to hide it. Do this in front of a mirror and see how much of your weapon comes out of your own silhouette. Because the more that you see coming out one direction or another is the more your opponent's going to see. And you don't want to give them more information. You're giving them a warning whenever you come back. It's like doing this. Obviously, your opponent's going to move because they don't want to get hit with a baseball bat swing to the face. But nice and straight in is going to be a lot harder for them to see, which means it's going to be a lot harder for them to defend against.